And let's start with the play that set off the entire night. So as you guys can see here, JC Sheldon is guarding Caitlin Clark. She swipes her in the eyeball. Caitlin Clark nudges her off because JC stays in her face. And then Tina Charles runs over and is kind of wagging her finger in Caitlin Clark's face. And then Marina Mabrey comes out of nowhere and chucks her to the floor. Now let's watch this in slow motion. Here, JC Sheldon is guarding Caitlin, swipes her in the face. There's one. Going for the ball, swipes her in the eyeball. Caitlin's gonna have to start wearing goggles. And then Caitlin pushes her off of her, like, why are you still in my face? Marina Mabrey, bat out of hell, chucks Caitlin Clark.
In the world of sports, there are moments, and then there are moments. A great performance can win a game, but a legendary one can change the conversation entirely. After 19 long days away from the court, nursing an injury while the league she had set on fire seemed to cool in her absence, Caitlin Clark didn't just return, she erupted.
This is in the locker room. This is before the game ended. Before the game ended. She comes out in the locker room and posted this. Like, what are we doing?
Sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, is anybody on this team going to stand up for Caitlin Clark? JC Sheldon grabbing Caitlin Clark all game, clawing at her. It's like tonight was a brawl, folks. Tonight was a brawl. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, is anybody on this team going to stand up for... And Sophie Cunningham.
Her comeback game against the formidable, undefeated New York Liberty wasn't just a victory, it was a statement so loud and so clear that it shattered months of media narratives and forced a public reckoning. But this story isn't just about her triumph, it's about the ultimate vindication of one man who had been shouting her gospel from the rooftops, while many of his own colleagues were seemingly plugging their ears.
Caitlin Clark, please leave this league and let it crumble. Please, this league does not deserve you. All this hate from these black people, all this hate from these lesbians, these people in the media, just go play basketball somewhere else. Your fans will follow you. We will follow you wherever you go. But let this shit crumble and burn to the fucking ground, man. Let the viewership drop below 50%. Let them lose hundreds of millions of dollars again, man. Let them go back into fucking irrelevancy. Nobody giving a damn about none of these players. Just leave.
Stephen A. Smith. For months, he was the lonely, passionate crusader trying to convince the world and his own network that Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie phenom, but a revolution in motion. This is the story of his last laugh, the day a single transcendent athlete became so undeniably great that she forced the biggest sports media company on the planet to finally confront the truth it had, for so long, allegedly tried to ignore.
With a jump shot and no regard for your feelings.
Talking about, let's start here. This is, of course, Sophie and Sheldon going down the floor. Sophie tries to wrap her up, and Sheldon gets to the floor, and all hell breaks loose. And Sophie said, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. We'll go. We'll go. So there's that. That, of course, was all a byproduct of this right here, folks. And I mean, when I tell you social media is setting the WNBA on fire right now, not in a good way, it's the understatement.
To understand the sheer force of this reckoning, you must first understand the performance that triggered it. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown. The Indiana Fever, who had struggled in Clark's absence, were facing the defending champion New York Liberty, a powerhouse team that had yet to taste defeat all season. The anticipation was immense. The game was on national television. The question on everyone's mind was not just whether Clark could play, but whether she could recapture the magic that had made her a global phenomenon. What she did next was not a recapture, it was a massive escalation. In a performance that will be etched into WNBA history, Caitlin Clark played like a basketball deity, a force of nature bending the game to her singular, indomitable will.
WNBA, Kathy Engelberg. Hello, Earth to Kathy Engelberg. Are you going to step in and do something about this trash that's going on? Players are getting assaulted on the floor. Like, come on, bro. Caitlin Clark could have really got injured right there, y'all. She could have really got injured by these haters, these jealous, hating players. They just jealous and hating, bro. She didn't even get ejected.
From the opening tip, she was electric. She finished the game with a season-high 32 points, but it was the way she scored that left the world speechless. She tied her career high with 7 blistering three-pointers. Many launched from a distance that can only be described as a different zip code, shots that other professional athletes wouldn't even attempt in an empty gym. But it wasn't just the scoring. Her court vision was breathtaking. She dished out 9 assists, threading passes through impossibly tight windows and elevating the play of her entire team. She grabbed 8 rebounds, mixing it up inside with players much bigger than her. She was a single rebound and a single assist away from a historic triple-double in her first game, back from a significant injury.
All right, enough is enough. You know, at some point, the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. You know, it is something that since the beginning, I've kind of like backed off on because physical play is a part of sports. You know, going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports. But when it crosses the line, the referees need to do their job.
She took a team that had been struggling and led them to a dominant wire-to-wire 102-88 victory, handing the mighty Liberty their first loss of the season in their own building. It was a performance so complete, so spectacular, and so utterly undeniable that it sent a shockwave through the entire sports world. It was a statement of intent. The Queen was back on her throne, and any narrative that attempted to downplay her significance had just been rendered completely and laughably absurd.
Welcome to WNBA Fight Night, or as some people are saying, WNBA Raw. What a game that was. We had it all. We had basketball, we had fighting, we had blonde on blonde crime. Oh, such an epic. Oh, goodness. But at the end of the day, it resulted in an Indiana Fever W. 88-71, taking care of business.
This moment of undeniable greatness was, for Stephen A. Smith, a moment of profound and deeply satisfying public vindication. To fully appreciate his victory lap, we must rewind the clock and chronicle his often lonely crusade on behalf of Caitlin Clark. While many of his colleagues at ESPN and in the broader sports media seemed cautious, hesitant, or even determined to downplay her impact, Stephen A. was loud, consistent, and unapologetically bullish from day one. He was the prophet in the wilderness, shouting a truth that his own institution often seemed unwilling to fully embrace. He saw that Clark was not just another talented player, she was a paradigm shift, a cultural and economic force unlike anything the league had ever seen.
Nah. Enough's enough, bruh. Enough is enough, bruh. What is going on? WNBA, y'all need to get this under control. This is ridiculous. Marina Mabrey, you just put yourself in the Dejanay Carrington box. You dirty slime ball player, you come and blindside Caitlin Clark. Marina Mabrey assaulted and tried to fight Caitlin Clark today. This is ridiculous. WNBA, Kathy Engelberg, do something. Do y'all want to go back to 55 to 60% of the people not watching shit again? I normally don't cuss in my blogs, but forget that. This was bullshit.
He was one of the first and most powerful voices in the media to argue, with passionate conviction, that Caitlin Clark deserved a spot on the Team USA Olympic roster. Not as a marketing gimmick, but as a legitimate basketball contributor whose unique skills could help the team win. When others were content to label her a rookie phenom, Stephen A. went further, repeatedly declaring on his show, First Take, that she was a legitimate contender for the league's Most Valuable Player award in her very first season, a claim that was seen as almost heretical by those who believe in the rigid hierarchy of professional sports. He was also a fierce and vocal critic of the physical abuse she was taking on the court, calling out the league and its referees for failing to protect their biggest star. Most importantly, he correctly and loudly attributed the league's newfound financial success and improved player perks directly to her presence. When the WNBA finally announced that it would be using charter flights for all teams for the first time in its history, Stephen A. made it crystal clear who was responsible. They ignored the fact that they got chartered flights because of this girl, he would later thunder, calling out the hypocrisy of veteran players who seemed to resent her while simultaneously benefiting from the economic boom she had created. While others parsed their words, Stephen A. spoke in bold headlines. He called her a generational talent, a superstar, and the golden goose that was single-handedly lifting the entire league to new heights. This wasn't just commentary. It was a one-man campaign to force the world to acknowledge the magnitude of the revolution they were witnessing.
We see Caitlin Clark on the receiving end of something, and it's not called correctly. In fact, she gets a technical foul after getting poked in the eye and then shoved to the floor, and Marina Mabry doesn't even get thrown out of the game. It's basically open season on Caitlin Clark, and the special whistle that she supposedly gets goes in the other direction. Flagrantly so. They got to put it to an end. I mean, she's the most valuable player in the league in the most literal sense. And somehow she gets the opposite of superstar treatment.
Stephen A.'s lonely crusade was made all the more significant and necessary by the backdrop of his own network's alleged media malpractice. As Caitlin Clark was putting up historic numbers and rewriting the WNBA record books on a nightly basis, the overarching narrative from the broader ESPN network was often bafflingly and frustratingly muted. This is the heart of the case against their coverage. Instead of leading the charge, celebrating their new superstar, and amplifying the biggest story in American sports, the network was widely accused of consistently dropping the ball. Viewers and critics alike pointed out, with increasing frustration, how segments that should have been dedicated to Clark's incredible on-court brilliance were instead filled with discussions about manufactured drama, the overblown rivalry with Angel Reese, or, in some truly baffling cases, completely irrelevant topics from other sports.
I feel good, and Sophie Cunningham put me out on a high note, folks. I didn't even say, Ben, calm down, regroup. I didn't even say that. Let's get straight to the play. Everybody, the plays everybody is talking about. First off, Marina Mabry body checking Caitlin Clark to the ground. JC Sheldon all over her. Riding her. Pokes Caitlin Clark in the eye. Oh, man. Caitlin Clark needs to start wearing goggles, folks. Caitlin Clark's going to need to start wearing goggles. Bumps up on Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark says, "Get your hands off me." And then here comes Marina Mabry. Boom! Exploding Caitlin Clark like a safety coming downhill in the NFL. There was no flop there.
There were moments when Clark would have a historic, record-breaking night, posting a stat line that would be the lead story for any male athlete, only to have ESPN's flagship program, SportsCenter, dedicate more time to a minor trade in Major League Baseball or a debate about Dak Prescott's legacy. For an institution that bills itself as the worldwide leader in sports, their apparent refusal to lead with the single biggest and most compelling story in the country felt like a deliberate and calculated choice. It painted a picture of institutional blindness, or worse, a willful ignorance driven by a complex internal agenda. It seemed they were determined to share the spotlight, to push a narrative of league-wide parity and downplay the reality that one player was overwhelmingly driving the conversation, even when the on-court reality and the booming viewership numbers told a very different story. The story of one player's singular, historic, and transformative dominance.
Of course, Marina Mabry is going to get ejected because that was unwarranted. She literally came out of nowhere and chucked Caitlin Clark. There should be a flagrant one, of course, on JC Sheldon because she swiped her and hit her in the eyeball. Whether it is intentional or not, you can still have a flagrant a flagrant foul called on you, whether you are trying to intentionally hurt somebody or not. But this is what they called, you guys. This is what they called. Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabry, Tina Charles were assessed with technical fouls on Tuesday. Caitlin, Marina, and Tina Charles. Technical fouls. That's it. Technical fouls. That's it. And JC Sheldon was assessed with a flagrant 1 foul, and no players were ejected.
And that story, the one that ESPN seemed so reluctant to fully embrace, was being written in bold, undeniable, and record-shattering numbers. The Caitlin Clark effect was not a matter of subjective opinion or media hype. It was a quantifiable, statistical, economic earthquake that was reshaping the entire landscape of women's professional sports. The data provides the irrefutable truth of her impact. In her rookie season, the Indiana Fever's average home attendance skyrocketed by an almost unbelievable 319%. The league as a whole saw its attendance jump by nearly 50% in the games she played in, the biggest increase in over 2 decades. Teams were forced to move their home games against the Fever to larger NBA arenas just to accommodate the tens of thousands of fans clamoring to get a glimpse of the phenomenon.
Literally about a minute and a half into recording this reaction earlier, with 1 minute left, and all hell broke loose between J.C. Sheldon and Sophie Cunningham, and it is very clear the Indiana Fever, some of these girls on this team are finally fed up. Finally fed up. Once again, WNBA, we're not talking about your basketball. We're talking about the WNBA WWE Raw circus that you got going on right now, and we all know this incident with Sophie stems from the incident that was clearly not handled correctly by the WNBA and the referees.
The television ratings tell the same staggering story. Every single one of the most watched WNBA games in history has featured Caitlin Clark. Her games on national television consistently draw audiences that are triple or even quadruple the league's previous average viewership. Her debut game was the most watched WNBA game on any ESPN platform ever. And in the most telling statistic of all, when she was out with her quadriceps injury for 5 games, the league's ratings reportedly plummeted by as much as 50%, only to come roaring back to record levels the moment she stepped back on the court. And then there's the merchandise. In her first year, WNBA merchandise sales surged by a staggering 450%, with Clark's number 22 jersey becoming the top-selling jersey of any athlete, in any sport, male or female. She wasn't just moving the needle, she had become the needle. This wasn't a story of gradual growth, it was the story of a one-woman economic stimulus package, a fact so obvious and so powerful that the media's attempts to downplay it became increasingly absurd and untenable.
So much happened in this game, but first, let's talk about Sophie and JC. All right, JC Sheldon. My goodness, dog. My goodness. Now, honestly, I felt like Sophie might have wanted a piece of JC after the Caitlin Clark and JC kind of scuffle going on, right? Then this happened, okay?
This brings us to the comedic and deeply awkward spectacle of the present day, the great ESPN bandwagon. After months of allegedly ignoring, downplaying, or burying her story under a mountain of other, less compelling narratives, the network is now scrambling to shower Caitlin Clark with the praise she has deserved all along. Her legendary comeback game against the Liberty seemed to be the breaking point, the moment when the force of her talent became so overwhelming that even a media empire could no longer resist its pull. Now, the very same programs, the very same analysts, who were once so hesitant to give her top billing, are falling over themselves to declare her a true superstar, a generational force, and the savior of the league. It's a comical and transparent pivot, akin to watching a friend who relentlessly made fun of your favorite band for years suddenly show up to the concert wearing a vintage tour t-shirt, screaming the lyrics to every song, and insisting they've been a fan since day one. The "we always knew she was special" narrative is now in full effect, and it is a source of immense satisfaction for the fans, and especially for Stephen A. Smith, who now gets to watch his own employer publicly eat crow. He can sit back with a knowing, triumphant smirk and remind everyone that he was on this train from the very beginning, while many of his colleagues were still standing back at the station, insisting it was just a passing fad. To be fair, and to understand the full context of this story, we must briefly and carefully explore the unspoken reason that may have fueled some of the media's and the players' initial hesitancy to fully embrace the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. This is the sensitive but crucial resentment factor. The WNBA is a league that is predominantly composed of Black athletes, many of whom are incredible talents who have worked tirelessly for years in relative obscurity, building the league with very little media attention or financial reward. Then, along comes Caitlin Clark, a young white girl from the middle of America, as Stephen A. Smith himself has accurately described her, and she instantly becomes the face of the league, attracting a level of fame, a mountain of endorsement deals, and a torrent of media adoration that has eluded even the most accomplished veterans. This has undeniably created a palpable and uncomfortable tension. The resentment, as Stephen A. has argued, is not necessarily a personal attack on Clark herself, but on what she represents, a perceived racial and cultural bias in media coverage and corporate marketing. Some veteran players likely felt that their years of excellence were being instantly overlooked in favor of a new, and in their eyes, more marketable face. This underlying tension may have influenced ESPN's initial coverage strategy, a misguided attempt to share the spotlight and appease the league's established and predominantly black stars, even when the public's interest was overwhelmingly focused on one person. It's a complex and uncomfortable dynamic, but it's essential to understanding the full context of the media's initial reluctance and Stephen A. Smith's courage in cutting through it. In the final, definitive analysis, this entire saga is a powerful tale of one man's vindication and a media empire's public humiliation. Stephen A. Smith, by courageously, loudly, and consistently sticking to the undeniable truth of what he was witnessing on the basketball court, has been proven emphatically and unequivocally right. He trusted his own eyes over the preferred narratives and internal politics of his own organization. And in doing so, he solidified his position as not just ESPN's most powerful voice, but often its most honest and credible one. His employer, ESPN, on the other hand, has been exposed for allegedly prioritizing its own complex agendas and manufactured storylines over the simple, powerful reality of a once-in-a-generation talent lighting up their sport. The story of Caitlin Clark's rise is a powerful testament to the fact that true, transcendent greatness cannot be ignored, managed, or downplayed forever. Eventually, the talent becomes so bright, so undeniable, and so economically powerful that it forces even the most stubborn and agenda-driven institutions to turn and face the light. Caitlin Clark is not just changing the WNBA, she is changing the way the WNBA is covered. She has become a force of nature so powerful that she can make the biggest sports media company in the world bend to the undeniable truth of her greatness, even if they are, embarrassingly,